everybody to this Green Christian workshop on 1,000,000 Acts of Hope, which is an event taking place in May, and Melanie's going to tell us a little bit more about it in a moment. But we'll begin with a prayer, please, from Judith.
This is adapted from a prayer in a book called Bare Feet and Buttercups. God of hope, stir us up. Stir us up to wonder. Stir us up to beauty. Stir us up to justice. Stir us up to love. God of hope, stir us up. Stir us up good. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Judith. So Melanie's going to kick off by telling us a little bit about 1,000,000 Acts of Hope. Melanie is many things, but as far as Green Christian is concerned, she is our church's project officer, trying to help us to get entry and have more influence on our local churches. So, Melanie, I am going to start sharing screen and then be over to you.
Thank you. Barbara's introduced me, so I don't need to introduce myself now. I just need to introduce 1,000,000 Acts of Hope, which is more of an initiative than an event that has been brought about by lots and lots of organisations who've been really, really worried about the rise of a very intolerant and hate-filled rhetoric that seems to be dominating our politics and our general way of life. So, Barbara, could I have the next slide? So the reason I said it's an initiative more than an event is because it's a whole week of action from the 13th to the 20th of May, which is deliberately a Wednesday to a Wednesday, so it encompasses a weekend, if that's what suits you. I probably can't do better than read from their website. And they say this: every day, millions of acts of hope happen all the time. These actions rarely make the headlines, but they represent the true spirit of Britain: practical, caring, and quietly transformational. We believe that most people want to live in strong, healthy, caring communities where everyone feels they belong. 1,000,000 Acts of Hope is about making that visible and bringing people from all backgrounds and all walks of life together. And it seems to me that at this time, when division can feel really loud and rhetoric that encourages hate and narratives that feed a sense of alienation and helplessness, and all that is on the rise and is feeding what is happening to our nation. So this sort of initiative is particularly important at this time in probably in our history, even though that feels really very heavy. Could we just have the next slide, Barbara? So this initiative is not a specifically green thing. I just wanted, therefore, to talk a little bit about why Green Christians signed up to support this. And I think, first and foremost, it's because it's about hope. And we all know how much we need hope, real hope, rooted in people's actions, to bring about the change that we need in the face of the climate and environmental crisis. So that's the first reason. But the second is that it's about community. And I think we all understand that community is fundamental in building the resilience that will help us navigate what the climate and the nature crisis is bringing us. It promotes all those sorts of things like kindness and generosity that are needed to build a resilient civil society. And those of you who have been following the thread of Green Christian will know that there is a thread through it about working on resilience. And that was the theme of the conference last year. So the final thing that I wanted to talk very briefly about in relation to Green Christian is that participating in this initiative is a way in which we can get our message out there. So valuable conversations can flow from our being involved in these millions of acts of hope, even if initially they don't appear to be connected with the green agenda, because this is one of those things that's just really intertwined. You can't separate this kind of community action from our ability to address the climate crisis, and more importantly, its consequences. So what might this involve? Barbara, could I have the next slide? There are three things that A Million Acts of Hope says on its website that we can do, and I've taken these from there. The first is to collect messages of hope, because what's really important is that the more hope we see, the more hopeful we can be, and the more hopeful our communities can be and other people can be. So by collecting messages of what gives people hope and what they hope for, we actually bring about this million acts of hope. So perhaps the second thing that maybe I could have on the next slide. The next thing, and what's really, really important to say, particularly given that we're a week out from this initiative, is that it can be connected with something that you are already doing. And in fact, a large part of the genesis of this initiative was to amplify what people are already doing. So if you have a food bank, a litter pick in your community, if you run a community lunch, these are all things that you can just keep doing and just amplify them with the million acts of hope. And there is on this slide the tag, it's at 1M Acts of Hope, and you can tag it on social media, but I'll come back to more about how you can amplify this. But it is really important to recognize that what we're doing is trying to show a picture of a kinder, more generous Britain. So you don't have to go out of your way to do something beyond what you're actually doing. Could I just have slide 3 then? So if you do want to go beyond what you're already doing and you have the capacity to do that, you can host a hope activity. And actually, this could be as simple as inviting your neighbour in for a cup of tea. So it might seem like it's a tall order with only a week to go, but it's a really basic thing that can be something that you can arrange quite quickly in your community. So you could do something big if you've already got a group who might want to do something, but you could just do something really small and still tag it with that tag that I talked about, the at 1 million acts of hope. So I'm going to add a fourth one to theirs because I was reading through their website and it seemed to me that this was quite important, but they don't specifically tag it as a particular activity. And that is to download and print one of the posters from their website and display it in your window so it's really visible, so people can see that you are involved in promoting and contributing to this million acts of hope. And you can ask others to do the same. They can download it themselves, or maybe you have the capacity to download it for them. So could I just have the last slide? This is really important. This is their website address. And you can just search Million Acts of Hope and it will come up, or A Million Acts of Hope, and it will come, this website will come up. And it's really important because you'll find a lot of information, and I'll come back to this at the end. But I think with that short intro, we'll save any questions until the plenary, if that's okay, Barbara, because we've got a couple of people here who can tell you what they're doing as part of A Million Acts of Hope. And then I think we'll go into breakout rooms. So can I hand over to you, Barbara, to start? Because I think you've got something to offer that's quite prayerful.
I do. I found something that Pope Leo had said, that he obviously didn't know about A Million Acts of Hope, but it really resonated with me that he was really promoting the same sort of thing. So he started off by saying, what do you feel about 318 million people experiencing acute hunger every day? We need to act, but without prayer we'll remain powerless. This May I invite you to join me in prayer that we may seriously commit to avoiding food waste and to ensuring that everyone has access to quality food every day. May our communities promote concrete gestures, awareness campaigns, food banks, and a sober and responsible lifestyle. Just the sort of things that the Million Act of Hope is asking us also to do. He said, you who sent us your beloved Son, Jesus, broken bread for the life of the world, give us a new heart, hungry for justice and thirsty for fraternity. May no one be excluded from the common table, and may your Spirit teach us to see bread not as an object of consumption, but as a sign of communion and care. So it's putting it in more sort of scriptural, biblical, theological language, but I think he would approve of the Million Acts of Hope campaign. Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you, Barbara. So, Helena, do you want to tell us maybe what you have got planned for A Million Acts of Hope?
Yeah. Uh, so we're a parish church in a very large village, and when I first heard about A Million Acts of Hope, I really wanted to support it. So I took a proposal to our church council. This was a few weeks ago, and they completely endorsed it. But because we've got a lot of events already going on in May and June, we're doing a green festival for Great Big Green Week. So we haven't got a lot of resource or bandwidth to do a specific event. So this is the plan that we came up with, which I think Melanie alluded to in one of the slides. But basically, we've got a welcome area, which has got like prayer trees in at the moment. So those prayer trees are going to become hope trees or trees of hope. And then we've made different sized heart-shaped tags with labels with tags on, so that you can actually put them up on the hope tree. And then next Sunday, so this is the problem with it being Wednesday to Wednesday in terms of church and services and things. So we're actually going to promote it from this next Sunday of the 9th. I will do what's called 60-second slot. Sorry, yes, a 60-second slot before our two services to tell our church community what A Million Acts of Hope is about and why we're supporting it. There'll be the heart-shaped labels on all the seats and everything, and also in the welcome area, and a big banner saying A Million Acts of Hope. And then we're asking people just to during the week, the 13th to the 20th, or around the 2 weeks anyway, around that, to actually just write down a small act of kindness or hope that they do. And obviously, as we said, a lot of people already do things of service and volunteer in the local community, so they can put that down. But we're also going to encourage them to do something, a bit extra at that go a bit further for this week. So do something that perhaps you wouldn't normally do. So as you say, it might be just popping into a neighbour. It could be picking something up on your weekly shop and putting it in for the food bank. It could be going to pick some litter up. We're also going to give some ideas for children, and our children's group will be looking at hope and what they can do, on the 16th, that Sunday, as well. And then also we've approached our parish council, and they're happy to have a tree of hope in the village hall. So it will be open to the community as well. Our church is always open in the daytime, so people from the local community can either come up to our church and hopefully fill out one of the hearts, or they can go into the village hall. So we'll obviously promote it on our social media and on the village social media, so that it gets out there. And then at the end of the week, so it'll be actually on the Sunday the 23rd, we're going to take all the hearts, and in the service, we're going to have a big blessing and celebration of all those acts and of all the people behind them, of course, and also feed that back on through social media, etc., so that the village gets to know. And we might give some examples of what people have done and what they could keep doing and do in the future, etc. So if you sign up so we've signed up on the website to say, you know, we're having this event. It's not exactly an event, but again, it's just promoting it and everything in our community. You get lots of these cards as well, which, you know, we can give out to people. And that's got the QR code on the back where it shows you, if you go onto that, you can sign the thank you card that's on the A Million Acts of Hope website. And you get lots of stickers as well and some posters. So it is worth actually, if you do an event, however small, it is worth registering it on the website, I think, partly because obviously that shows people, you know, everyone how many events there are and how many people are behind this, but also because you know, you get a lot of promotional stuff as well. I've also found out as well just recently that actually, because I live near Swindon, and Swindon itself is actually taken this on board, so that there is a website, there's posters everywhere, and there's a QR code that takes you through to a website, and that gives you all the events in our local area as well. So we'll be promoting that within our church community and local community for people to see if they want to get involved with any of the other specific events that are on. I think, as Melanie said, I mean, obviously what we're doing, it's not focused on creation care specifically, but in this instance, it's about hope and promoting community, and that's the important message, really. So, yeah, so that's what we're up to.
Thank you, Helena. That sounds brilliant. Absolutely amazing. I'm really glad your church has got behind it.
Mm.
Judith, I think you also had some ideas that you might want to share.
Yes, I have approached our church, but so far I haven't had much response there. But what I thought I would do, because particularly when we had COVID, I used to put things in the front garden to engage with people walking past, and that was quite popular then. So I'm going to put up, I put like a blackboard, I'm going to put up in the front garden with their description, like a wall of hope. And I will put on it, I'll start it off with you. A sign of hope for me is the fact that we have such good neighbours who will always take in a parcel or lend you a ladder or whatever you need. And that to me is a really important sign of hope. But then leave it open to invite other people who walk past to add what they think are the signs of hope. And in some ways that would reflect, I guess, what's important in our community. So hopefully it should be a lot of people, because we're quite near a local primary school. There's always a good crowd of people walking up and down. But also it seems quite a simple idea, which therefore might be more accessible for people who haven't perhaps got a lot of time to organise anything.
Yeah, that's really, really brilliant too. I think that could be a real community builder in and of itself, as well as an act of hope.
Yes.
Barbara, back to you. Are we going to go for breakout groups, or do we want to stay together and have a discussion?
We'll go to breakout groups as we usually do in our workshops, because then you can just have a conversation with 3 or 4 of you. Now, we have some questions we came up with, which is, what are people doing for this and what is happening in your own church area? But I'm very conscious that many on the call may not be planning anything. So I put those into the chat, but basically just for be about 10-15 minutes, just share some ideas on the sort of things you know about that are going on in your neighbourhood. You might not have thought of them as an act of hope. Simple things like Judith was talking about. Or have you got an idea, something sparked already in your mind, or something that you could perhaps do or try doing? You could share and talk about it. And of course, if you are planning to do something, then please share that. Okay, So welcome back, everyone. I certainly, in our little group, it was amazing listening about some of the things folks were doing. A plan for something to do, and another, the wonderful things already ongoing. So it's a chance now to just share more widely any ideas you've had, any thoughts, if you've had inspiration, something you're going to do, or something you'd like to share that someone said in your group. Just wave a hand. We're all on the screen together. Yes, Helena, come in, just unmute and come in.
So we were talking in our group about two of the churches were supporting Christian Aid, because obviously it's Christian Aid Week as well, which actually is quite a good thing, you know, that it's that the timing's the same, because I know Christian Aid are one of the many organisations, many charities that are behind A Million Acts of Hope. So they were already doing things, events, and obviously fundraising for Christian Aid. So that in itself, all those things are, you know, acts of hope and kindness and generosity. So yeah, that's quite easy really in a way, but it does, you know, it can still come under the A Million Acts of Hope umbrella, I think. So yeah.
Thanks, Helena. Anybody? Oh, I must share this with you. Something just popped into my inbox from my church. I have tried for years to get somebody to take on the role of a task of getting us an eco church. I said I would support, but I wanted, you know, was trying to find somebody else to do it. And our new curate has taken this on. She's done all the paperwork, and I just had something pop into my box to say we have been officially awarded bronze. There we go. That's brilliant. So now we've got to go onwards and upwards and see if we can get further. Anyway, I digress. No, that is an act of hope, isn't it? And it's not just one person doing it. We've got quite a group of 9 or 10 people are involved in it. So that also is a hopeful sign. So that's my contribution here. Okay, anybody else got a contribution of something that's going on? It's hopeful they'd like to share with us, or that they think we could do. Yes, Judith.
I was very struck that in my group, everyone said, oh, I don't know if we do much, and then reeled off all the different things that their churches are doing. And yet there's a slight reservation that, well, but we have to do more things for this Million Acts of Hope, but in some ways just amplify what people do already, I think is amazing. And I think people would be surprised if they went around their, you know, their church or their community to all the different things that are happening, because they are just so numerous. And so I think people think, oh, it's only a small thing, it doesn't matter. But it sounds like there's an awful lot of things going on out there. And this would be a really useful way of highlighting everything.
Yes. And if you are doing something, those people in the groups who have been sharing things you've been doing, if you could find the time to go onto the Million Acts of Hope website and add in there what you told us this evening, then that will encourage them in their turn, and it will add to the numbers of different people all around the country who are sharing their acts of hope. Anybody else like to share something from your groups? Or what you've been doing? You think you might do? If not, John, I'm sure things are going up in the northeast. Tell us what's happening in the northeast with you and Vanessa.
We're very political up here in the northeast. Sunderland, all the councillors are up for re-election, and that is enabling us to engage with new councillors. We had a hustings last week, churches coming together. We reckon that maybe 60-70% of the council will be new councillors. coming in to the city. So it's trying to engage them in that, the climate emergency film, the trying to reframe thinking that the council could go to reform who don't traditionally like green issues. So trying to have a more positive, hopeful case of putting forward a better city and engaging politicians on that. So we're waiting to see election results and then trying to be political going forward.
Thank you. Great. I knew you'd come in with something. Well done. And what's happening in Sheffield, Colin McCulloch? Must be something hopeful happening in Sheffield with all the number of Green Christian members there are up there.
No, I'm in the total despair and the slough of despond at the moment. But no, I'm sorry. I'm slightly frazzled and emotionally and physically jaded because I've been electioneering very actively. Although we don't, in a sense, fortunately perhaps, we don't have all our councillors out. So we've got 2 years before that happens here. But we've got a third of our councillors up for re-election, most of them, or replaced by the same party if they get in, and others coming in, of course. And as John has mentioned, this whole reform thing with various outrage issues around the neighbourhood. And yeah, but in terms of hope, I think I just say that, yeah, in my group I was sharing, the thing is being in a very large but quite busy church with a lot of people with very busy lives, you know, both parents working in quite a few cases with children or young people and so on. And a lot of other programs, alpha courses and home groups, and then doing a life course, which is more for people with more sort of broken lifestyle problems of various sorts. And food bank, and then a gardening group for the very little bit of garden that we have. And we do eco church. We've got the silver one already. We checked all the boxes, you know, it's very nice. But on the other hand, I think what I like about this Million Acts of Hope is that it is about kind of pointing to the fact that there's a lot going on already, and encouraging perhaps some people who are just going through life and in terms of church, just sort of show up on Sundays and maybe do a midweek group or something, and that's about it. And they miss some of those anyway because of stuff going on. Just to point to them, well, actually, you can be doing a bit more that is about present day expressions of the kingdom in some sense. I mean, I think
absolutely, Colin.
I would say that.
And I'm going to thank you. I'm going to bring in, if she would be so willing, Sue Charlton to follow on from you on that, because Sue shared in our group things that her church are doing on a regular basis. So Sue, would you like to just share a little bit about what you were telling Melanie and Sophie and myself?
Yes, well, I was just explaining that it was hard to think of something necessarily that we're doing kind of next week, although actually we're very active Christian Aid fundraisers, and so we've got a concert, we've got a guest speaker from Christian Aid who's going to be excellent, I'm certain, films and all sorts of other things through the week. And most recently, we are one of 20 churches in Ealing that run the Ealing Winter Night Shelter. That starts in November and goes all the way through to the end of March. Each church taking on 6 weeks, not full weeks, just one night. So we're one of those, and that's finished, of course, because it's the end of March, finished a month ago. But that brings a lot of people. I need at least 26 or 7 volunteers to run that, with drivers and cooks and people that are prepared to stay awake all through the night, that sort of thing. Most of those people, of course, doing more than one Friday night. They're doing several. We're very involved with Food Bank. I've been involved since the beginning in 2011. And that serves 6 out of the 7 towns in the London Borough of Ealing. It's a very big borough. and we're feeding about 650 people per week across the borough. But also trying to help people out of poverty with things like free debt counselling schemes, and the council get involved and come in and help people to know about training facilities and how to apply for jobs and things like that. So all of these things combined. Oh, and the most recent, we did a screening of the National Emergency Briefing, which is all about climate change. You've probably heard when I registered 6 weeks or so ago, I think I was about the 300th church that had registered. There were over 2,000 screenings across the country. And that doesn't just stop at people coming to see the film, and it's a short film, but it sets out very, very clearly all the things that climate change is doing, i.e. how it's affecting our health, our farming, our food security, etc., etc. And then each of us, we've set up a post group to try and further that, meet our MPs and councillors. Actually, some of our councillors came. So a lot of things going on, which just sort of chunters on through the year. But I think it's important that people get involved, but then it isn't just a one-off, just for one special week, but actually get a taste for keeping going and keeping all that activity.
Thank you, Sue. I think that's just tremendous. Okay, well, I think I'm going to ask Melanie just to kind of sum up, and you'd like the slide back again, Melanie, I think, wouldn't you?
Yes, but before you do, I just wanted to say something that kind of is a bit more political, because John was talking about how they were very political in the north. I think this is something coming all our way, not just the north. And one of the things that you may not have come across yet, but it will be on everyone's radar, is that during this week will be the big Unite the Kingdom March. I think they might even be calling it Unite the West. It's the big, dare I say, Tommy Robinson, Stephen Yaxley Lennon's march. They're expecting it to be huge. They're expecting a lot of people who are very disaffected by what is happening in our country. That, alongside the likely results of the elections that are being held in places tomorrow, is going to feel, I think, quite dispiriting. And I think it's just important to remember all these acts of hope. And it's why it's so important to feed into it, because we have to hold on to something when we watch narratives of hate and division dominating our politics. And it's not just our politics, it's dominating our faith. You may not have noticed, but one of the big things that happens in these marches is groups of people carrying very large crosses, calling out Christ is King. And we all acknowledge that Christ is King, but when they say it, they often mean the outsider is not welcome, which is a really tough thing to counter. So we need to hold on very much to the hope that A Million Acts of Hope is bringing. And it's not a coincidence that it's this same week as the Tommy Robinson event, because it is, in a way, our quiet but determined pushback against that. So yeah, maybe now is the time to put up that slide, Barbara. Just to remind you of the website address again, and I'm just, the reason I want to remind you of the website address again is lots and lots of useful information in the community hub section, particularly of that website. There are a number of guides on there which have information on how to amplify your action. There's an organizers pack, which is particularly useful. It goes into some of the things that I talked about earlier. In fact, you'll recognize the slides as coming from that. It has the tags and the hashtags that you would need to use on social media as you amplify your action. But also there's a really useful guide on how to get your hopeful action into your local media, which I think is a really important thing not to forget, that actually telling other people about what you're doing is part of the sort of social cohesion that we are seeking to build. I'll put the hashtag in the chat for you now. There you go. So if you just copy that, and if you do social media, just add that at, and I think there are probably some hashtags as well in there, but I didn't see any. And Helena mentioned, and anyone can do this, you don't need to sign up for anything. If you go to the website, there's a card on the front page. It's the opening of the website. And you can sign on the website, you can sign that card, and it's basically a thank you card to the millions of people across the UK who take action. So just pop on there, put your name and address, and maybe keep in touch with the campaign. So maybe back to Barbara for notices, and then Judith in prayer. Is that how it's going to work?
Absolutely. Yeah. Just find this. Right. So we have the next talk is on Wednesday, the 20th of May. And it's a talk by Julian Olwood, he's written a book with Andrew Davis, top theologian, called A Safe Planet in Good Faith. And he's going to be calling for a rethink on not just how we can reduce our emissions, but how we live, hope, lead, and take responsibility. He's quite a catch to have him come and speak to us. He was a lead author of the fifth assessment report of the IPCC report, which had a focus on mitigating industrial emissions. So that's on the 20th of May, and it'll be a talk followed by normal questions and answers session. And then the next workshop is on the 3rd of June, Wednesday, 3rd of June, and that's going to be led by Wildcard, who are a campaigning group working with the country's biggest landowners towards nature restoration in the UK. And you can find details on both of those, of course, on the Green Christian website. So I'd like to thank Melanie for sort of introducing us and to what this was all about. And I'd like to ask Judith to end, please, with a prayer. Thank you.
I hope this makes you smile. A smile is cheer to you and me. The cost is nothing. It's given free. It comforts the weary, gladdens the sad, consoles those in trouble, good or bad. To rich or poor, beggar or thief, it's free to all of any belief. A natural gesture, young and old, cheers on the faint, disarms the bold. Unlike most blessings we pray, is the one thing we keep when we give it away. Amen.
Thank you, Judith, and thank you all for being here, and good night.